how to approach conversations. And how to look at things and say hapa ni hii na hii na hii na hii. And of course I have my good friend Boni in the house.
Yeah.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Good to see you.
Good afternoon.
Hey, niko salama kabisa.
Salama.
Always good to hang out with you and have this conversation.
Yeah.
And just be able to help people in one way where Mungu ametuwezesha.
Ndio.
Tusaidiane, tuchanuane, so that tupunguze ma regrets kwa life.
Hata tutaki ma regrets bana. Unajua ni kugumu already.
Yes.
So tukiprevent magumu mengine. Kwanza magumu ya roho.
Unajua ya roho inakuanga noma kuliko hizi zingine.
Roho inaweza kata hata favorite food.
I'm telling you.
Na si vizuri. So karibu.
Asante sana.
Good to have you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we started, we talked about relationship rhythms.
Rhythms, yes.
A look at working relationships.
Yes.
And I think we are continuing with that.
We are continuing with that today. And I'm very excited about what we are going to discuss today. I think it's going to add a lot of value to the lives of our listeners. And I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Me too.
Yes.
Kwanza Boni, before to engage the conversation,
yes.
I was asking people maybe to help me encourage a young person in an environment that is full of discouragement.
Yes.
And what can you tell such a listener right now? Like
discouragement. Now discouragement inakuwaga noma sana. Because one of the things about discouragement that is very bad is that discouragement is very personal. You can be among people who are even very encouraged and be very discouraged. But I think I want to say two things about discouragement. Discouragement, number one, comes to everybody. There is nobody who is ever immune to discouragement. Hata mi kuna saa ingine discouragement uninyorosha. Na kahivi nashindwa, hii life manze itakuaje, yeah? But so one is just realizing discouragement comes to everyone. But then number two, realizing that discouragement is a test of focus. What will you focus on? I usually tell people one of the easiest ways to conquer discouragement, just find something you are grateful for and express your gratitude. Because discouragement is a spirit that survives where there is ingratitude. But the moment you become, and that's why Bible inatuambianga, give thanks in all things. You're for all things. In all things. Ukikuwa kwa noma yoyote, just find one thing you're grateful for. You will begin to turn the state of your heart from discouragement to hope. In fact, I usually tell people the distance between discouragement and encouragement is gratitude. Gratitude. So unaambia tu God, manze niaje God, I am thankful I can walk. Just look for the little things that we take for granted. And it's actually the truth of the matter is, the more you take things for granted, the more you'll be grounded by discouragement. So angalia tu zile vitu sana sana si you take for granted, that you can walk. There is somebody who cannot walk. That you can eat. There is somebody who cannot eat. Yeah. So look for something to be grateful for. And then once you begin to be grateful, you will find that discouragement begins to subside. The other thing that I usually do that really helps me, in fact, this one really works for me. When you're discouraged, find somebody to encourage. Because you don't need to be encouraged for you to encourage somebody. You just make a decision. Wacha ni call Man Karis ni encourage, ni mwambie, Man Karis, you're doing a good job. The moment I tell you that, I trigger the law of sowing and reaping. Because scripture operative, whatever a man sows, that shall he also reap. So if you don't sow discouragement encouragement as a seed, then you give the weeds of discouragement root to continue growing.
That's deep, man.
So gratitude, and then encourage to mse. Yes.
Alafu nimependa hiyo point ulisema ni mali kuna discouragement. Ni kuna mali uko na focus.
Kuna kitu na focus nayo.
Kuna kitu na focus.
Na focus ni choice. Focus waga ni choice yako. Kuna ka photo fulani kalikuwa kana trend one time. Sijui kama ulikaona. There were two guys in a prison. So hiyo prison hapo nje kulikuwa na matope mingi sana. So one of the guys in the prison alikuwa anaangalia hiyo matope and he was looking very gloomy, very sad. The other guy was in the same prison, but nje kulikuwa na stars, kulikuwa na moon. So the guy was looking up and smiling. So two guys in the same circumstances,
focusing on
different focus, different state of heart. So encourage yourself by changing your focus, number one, being grateful, and then number three, find somebody to encourage. Kuna kitu mufanya every month I must find a day to do this. I go to my WhatsApp list and I pick random 30 people and I send them a word of encouragement. And guess what happens? Most of them respond back with encouragement. I find that to be very fascinating.
Yo, iko sawa.
Sijui kwa nini Wakristo believe wanaweza so pesa na wa believe wanaweza so encouragement.
Adoa anakimbiza.
And the best things you can sow are not tangible things. It's intangible things. Yeah? Zile vitu sio uwezi guza. You know, encouragement, you cannot touch it, yeah? But you can give it. And guess what? You cannot, when you give encouragement, you lose nothing. You gain everything.
Wow. Iko sawa.
Yes, inaweza.
Tumekuwa encouraged.
Asante. Hata mimi nimekuwa encouraged. Kusema hivyo tumekuwa encouraged.
Umekuwa encouraged.
Absolutely.
All right. Sasa,
yes.
Tuendelee na your point.
Yeah.
Acha digest kidogo.
Udigest kwanza kiasi.
Imeingia.
Okay.
Relationship rhythms tulikuwa wapi?
Tuliongea story ya relationship rhythms last time, so we talked about two things that bring rhythm. And remember, when we say about rhythm, we are talking about bringing flow into your relationships. Yeah? Because you can run your relationships in two ways. Either your relationships are flowing or they are causing you to be a frowning human being. So unajua msapira anaweza lemewa kusema hizo vitu mbili, flowing and frowning, eh? So yeah, so we are saying that there is a way you can live life, and we are not saying that life will be perfect or life will not have pain and disappointments, but we are saying you will be able to enjoy a certain rhythm and a certain flow. So tuliongea about vitu mbili last time that bring that sense of flow and rhythm into your relationships. Tuliongea story ya purpose. Tukaongea na story ya perspective. Today I just want to talk about two more things and probably see where God helps us to go with that. The third one that I wanted to talk about is principles. Yeah, relationships that have flow are run based on principles, not emotions. Because emotions all change. And if you're going to have relationships that have rhythm, you've got to build your relationships on something that does not change. And that is what a principle is. A principle is something that does not change because it is established by God. For example, when God says the wages of sin is death, that's a principle ameweka. Hawezi negotiate na hiyo principle. When Bible inaongeaga about whatever a man sows, that shall he also reap. That's a principle. Hata ukienda kwa shamba leo upande maharagwe, hawezi vuna mahindi, because there is a principle God ameweka that allows you to do everything with a predictable end. So that unaweza predict. For example, Psalms chapter 1. Blessed is the man that walks not in the counsel of the wicked. You know? Anakupatia narrative hapo, and then anakuambia, blessed is the man whose delight is in the law of the Lord. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that brings forth his fruit in season, and whatever he does prospers. So kuna rhythm inafunguliwa na principles. And one of the reasons, and I want to just give a few reasons why we don't run our relationships based on principles. We run them based on emotions. For example, sijui kama ushaikuwa ukitembea mahali maybe ukakanyaga msee kwa street, and then msee akakutukana, ukasikia tempted kumtukana back, but then ukasema, wait a minute, I live by a higher principle. Yeah, that when people do me wrong, I respond to evil with love. You operate with that principle, and then manze ukamwambia pole, uka-apologize, and then you went your way. You know what you have done? You have operated on principles. But the reason why people don't operate on principles is, I'm going to give you a few things why people don't operate in principles. Number one, when you're ruled by a spirit of insecurity, you cannot operate in principles in your relationships. Insecurity. Na insecurity inamaanisha nini? Insecurity inamaanisha ujijui, au jiamini. You have to do something to prove who you are. Yeah? I keep telling, especially my sisters who are listening to us today, I keep telling them, you will never be loved by a person for real for so long as you project an energy of insecurity. You are needy, you are clingy. when yule mse sumbua because your life revolves around you. You are insecure, you know. When you're dating a guy, I talked to a lady some years back who was dating a guy, and this guy was doing, ujamaa alikuwa ameemploywa kwa job ya marketing. So of course, you know, when you're doing marketing, sometimes even during your date, kuna simu ya biashara itakam. You know, this woman would just throw tantrums, and it was her insecurity speaking to her. Because of course, you know, when you're talking to a client, kuna vile unaongea, because you are trying to get the client to buy a product. So this lady was interpreting ni kama ujamaa akona demu mwingine na anamkatia in her presence. But you see, what was speaking to her is her insecurity. When you are insecure, you become incapable of making right decisions, especially because insecurity zako ndo zitakuwa zinakuongelesha. Unaona ka text kamekam zo shout sana. Unaona mseme amechukua simu yake, text imekama, amesmile, unaanza kujiuliza ni nini nafanya smile. As if msee akireceive text anafaa kujam.
Kumbusha wife ya msee najua.
Yes. Usimtaje hewa.
Kuna season kwa marriage ni mwalimu.
Yes.
So unaona kama vile labda mwalimu student anaandikaga ku appreciate mwalimu, nifunza Kiswahili, nikapita na shukuru. Sasa siku moja aliamka asubuhi, akacall kila namba iko na girl.
Yes.
Alafu akadelete namba zote.
Ziko na
mrembo. Sasa kuna moja aliamua kutumia message. Alitumia message boss. Wakijana alipasha kijana.
I'm telling you.
Alipasha boss. And at the end of it all, now years later, it was, I know there's maybe causes of this thing.
Yes.
But unaona alienda sana hata huruma job ingeisha.
Absolutely. And that is insecurity. And that's why we are saying, when you are insecure, you are incapable of operating by principles. Because principles don't make sense to the insecure. Wanaangaliaga their world from a screen of fear. So everything they look at it in terms of how they will lose, how it will hurt them, how somebody is not fully loving them. So when you project that energy of insecurity, then you cannot have rhythm in your relationships. And a good example is, and by the way, guys can also have this insecurity.
They do have.
They can have it. And by the way, when a man, this is very interesting. When a man becomes insecure, he becomes full of ego. When a woman becomes insecure, she becomes full of desperation. Ushayona wale madem waga, they are working too hard to impress a man. Any man. Desperation cannot work until there is a soil of insecurity. So ukipata hata, maybe you're a lady, umefika 30, and you're starting to think time imekupita, it is because you're listening to the voice of insecurity. God does not need the alarm clock of your age to give you a relationship.
Amen.
He just needs you to continue growing in maturity. And that's why I keep telling people, your relationships are a reflection of your level of security or insecurity. And by the way, ikitu inaweza kusumbua hata ukiwa married. To the extent that if you probably hear your spouse speaking to somebody else, or even you hear, somebody speaking something about you, you quickly revert to a negative way of interpreting a scenario that has nothing to do with you.
Ukweli Boni, kuna jamaa Konyasi lakini alistorm building mahali wife alikuwa ameenda kufanya koroga. Killed the wife. As you're saying, inakuwa ego. Saizi mali tuko actually insecurities inakuwa very dangerous because that's the leading cause of why men are hurting their wives. Some are even killing them. Kijana ameachwa na dem campus, anachukua shoka anaenda. The other time kijana high school alienda kustorm kwa nyumba ya mtoto wa form 2.
Can you imagine?
I think insecurity ni noma. Not even thinking Wazumesema desperation kwa side ya madem kwa machali saizi inafanya wanakuwa ego
and
na wanakuwa
aggression.
Very dangerous.
Absolutely. In fact, kwa machali, insecurity ina manifesting in a bloated ego and aggression.
God,
so even in marriage, when you find that you're too aggressive, especially when there is a conflict. And by the way, when there is a conflict, that is when you're easily able to tell the level of somebody's security. Because one of the things security does, inakupatianga ability ya kuregulate emotions zako. Because you're secure, you're not trying to fight somebody to prove a point. You understand who you are. But when you're insecure, you become like a volcano or a skunk. Unajua volcano ulipuka, na skunk kuchafua hewa. Watu hawezi kaa hapo. Insecurity. So if you're insecure as a human being, and this is the most interesting thing, you cannot be secure in anything else other than in God. You know, the same way the only secure place for fish is water. The only place where a human being can find security and contentment is inside God. So a lot of people continue on that road of insecurity because they don't have God as the reference point of their security. He's the only one who told you he will never leave you. Unajua hata wifi yako anaweza kutoka. You know? Hata watu yu na waleanga na wanakutoka. So you cannot build your security around something that you can lose. You must build it on something that you cannot lose. And we are saying men become aggressive and egoistic. Women become clingy and desperate when they are ruled by insecurity.
Wacha tukunywe kopo la uji.
Tukunywe kopo la uji.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is...
Yeah.
Man, sawa tu.
Shajara ya biashara na Dolly Mwirigi.
Hujambo. Idara ya kilimo katika kaunti ya Kiambu imetoa mafunzo kwa wasimamizi wa usajili wa wakulima katika kaunti unaotarajiwa kuanza hapo kesho Septemba tarehe 1. Hii ni katika azma ya kuhakikisha awamu ya pili usajili wa wakulima imefaulu. Kando na kusajili wakulima, mfumo wa kidijitali pia utatoa huduma za upanuzi wa kielektroniki, usimamizi wa mikopo na huduma za mitambo na serikali na kaunti ili kutoa huduma za ufanisi na kuboresha uzalishaji wa kilimo. Awamu ya pili zoezi la usajili wa wakulima nchini inafanyika katika mikoa yote baada ya serikali kufanikiwa katika zoezi la majaribio la usajili kwa wakulima mapema mwaka huu. Zoezi hilo linafuatia agizo la Rais kuhusu kuundwa kwa mfumo wa kitaifa wa usajili wa wakulima ambao utakuwa muhimu katika kuhakikisha usambazaji mzuri wa mbolea ruzuku kwa wakulima kote nchini. Kulingana na ripoti ya Wizara ya Kilimo, serikali ilisajili jumla wakulima milioni 4.3 katika awamu ya kwanza, inalenga kusajili wengine milioni 5 katika awamu ijayo. Kwingineko ni kwamba makamu mkuu wa Egerton Profesa Isaac Kimwage amesisitiza dharura ya kushughulikia usalama wa chakula na lishe katika kukabiliana na mabadiliko ya hali ya hewa. Kimwage alibainisha kwa idadi ya watu inayoongezeka pamoja na kupungua kwa kilimo, ilidai mbinu bunifu za kilimo kwa ajili ya uzalishaji endelevu wa chakula na usalama wa lishe. Akizungumza katika eneo hilo, Profesa Kimwage alibainisha kwa mradi huu unatoa fursa nzuri ya kurekebisha kilimo ili kukabiliana na changamoto za siku za usoni katika chakula na usalama wa lishe. Ni hayo tu kwa sasa. Mimi ni Dolly Mwirigi.
Shajara la biashara.
Hope FM, another quality service from Christ, is the answer ministry.
Unapitia wakati mgumu na bado unasonga, uyajali maneno yao wanayoyasema. Umepoteza vyote na bado watafuta tena, hapo hapo uliposhika shikilia tena. This kufeli na wengine ni matapeli. Wambie nisiogopi vitamini kama komando, iwe baridi joto mini kama komando. Maadui zangu mnisameheni, maana mimi sio level zenu. Mkiniona mnikimbieni, maana hiyo ndo salama yenu. Wambie najivunia Mungu, maana ndo yangu kinga. Kushoto kulia moto, juu na chini moto. Wanaopiga ndele watakama kuringa. Kushoto kulia moto, juu na chini moto.
That's a brand new one from Irene Roberts kutoka kule TZ Tanzania. Sema we ni soja. Boni, we ni soja.
Umeweza sana. Very nice.
Umeipenda?
Nimeipenda.
We have very nice students here. Kuna wenye washatumia watu messages za encouragement.
Hivyo waendelee hivyo.
Wanasema wanazipata back.
Wanapata
back.
Hiyo kickback
Iko. And just like this friend of mine here is asking, who is this with these great nuggets of encouragement? And I've learned like 10 things spoken so fast in less than a minute or two.
That's amazing.
When it was Evans.
Yes.
Also a great message from my brother who yako Gabon. Anasema
West Africa kule. Very nice.
Alafu Maureen anasema hiyo ya security imeweza leo. Anasema being busy kiasi but always tuned in. Very important.
Yes,
Ruben Blessing says, as a good student I have sent encouragement to 20 people. I think amenitumia pia mimi.
Umereceive.
Nitarudisha Ruben, nitarudisha. We're talking about security.
Yes.
And you've given us even an example or two. Umetuambia in men ina manifest kama ego and aggressiveness, and a lot of men are in that place. And in ladies inakuwa clingy na kukua clingy ni mbaya. Say that's is a
clingy sipo. No.
Chali wakati ako clingy ndio una feel.
No, the thing is
huyo nimeuingiza box na nimefunga na kafuli.
When you become too clingy, you become like a parasite. Unajua parasite ni ile kupe ina hangingi pale kwa ng'ombe. That is what hiyo sasa. When you're clingy, clinginess means that you are entitled. The world exists for you. So and everything must happen to impress you because you are the center of the universe. You are the goddess or the god. So we are saying don't be clingy. God did not create a woman to be clingy. He created her to be a helper. There's a difference between those two things.
Kuna yeye anasema anashindwa kuendea watoto bana.
Watu hiyo wasishinde niaje.
Eka earphone sendea watoto kutoka shule. Ama utapata video hapo.
Mwambie radio iko anaweza replay back.
Watoto wasiwachwe waendewe. Boni, so tuendelee. Tulikuwa
so insecurity tumesema if you are insecure you cannot have principle centered relationships because your insecurity will always drive you against principles. When you are insecure, you will be loud on your emotions and you will be very soft on logic. And yet relationships do not depend on emotions. We are emotional, but we don't depend on emotions. So, tumesema number one is insecurity. If you don't work on your insecurities, your relationship rhythm will not be where it needs to be. Utakuwa manzi, life yako ni kama sea yenye iko na mawimbi hivi ya. Ushaiona kuna vile ocean ikiwa imenyamaza. It's a very beautiful scene to behold. But if you've ever seen when there is a storm in the ocean, you don't want to be close to that storm. And that storm is what the relationship world of an insecure person looks like. It is stormy, it is rugged, it has no peace. Because the only way to access peace is principles. So tumesema insecurity. Let me throw in another one. If you're going to be able to enjoy the rhythm that God wants you to have in relationships, is you must stop being insecure. Number two, you must stop being insensitive.
But sorry for interjecting.
Yes.
Hapo na feel tumeongelea effect insecurity sana.
Yes.
Na ningependa maybe you talk to somebody mwenye saizi after umesema hivyo. Anaona manze I'm insecure. How do they get from that place?
Number one is to realize the source of your insecurity. Sometimes and insecurities happen for very many reasons. Inaweza kuwa ujai kuoneshwa unconditional love and acceptance. People are always judging you based either on your looks or on your performance. So inside you there is a hole that is looking for validation. Unaweza kuwa pia unakuwaga na story ya insecurity because you are rejected. Maybe the first relationship uliingia ikaenda mbaya, the second one ikaenda mbaya, the third one ikaenda mbaya, and that cycle of rejection can cause a spirit of insecurity to take over you. The other thing that also brings insecurity is you've never known who you are. Because kama ujijui, you will keep chasing a shadow of what you think will make you look important. I don't know whether you've ever seen people who even buy clothes to feel important, even go to certain hotels to feel important. And here's the thing I want people to understand. When you know who you are, where you are cannot make you feel less than you are. Ukijijua we ni nani? I try giving this example. Noti ya thao ikiwa Central Bank, value yake ni thao. Noti ya thao ikikuwa Mathare, value yake ni thao. Noti ya thao ikikuwa Runda, value yake ni thao. So it is not the location of the note, it is the value of the note. And who can better give you value than God? Genesis 1:26 inasemaje? God created man in his image and likeness, which means God is the original giver of value and dignity. So ukisharudi back to who are you? Why did God create you? What has God invested in you? Once you begin to realize those things, then you begin to deal with your insecurities. But the biggest cure of insecurity is knowing that you're fully loved and accepted by God. Imagine hakuna kitu unaweza fanya. You cannot fast enough to impress God. Wewe ukifast 40 days na ule mseme aja fast hata, the level of love that God has for you is equal. So you see what even drives, like what you saw happen in Shakahola, why were people convinced to go and literally die to impress God? Because somebody saw the insecurity of those people. When people are insecure, they are very easy to deceive. Ukiwaipatata ule dem mwenye nemu insecure, she's very easy to be deceived by men. So women are not deceived by men because men are bad. Women are deceived by men because there is something in them that makes them vulnerable. Men are not deceived by bad women because women are bad, but because there is a seed of insecurity in them. And by the way, ukisha realize, one of the things also, and maybe I need to say this, one of the things also that is a manifestation of insecurity is jealousy. And over the last 1 year, I've been journeying with so many couples that literally don't have a relationship because there is too much jealousy. Jealousy about, this my husband is talking to so and so, and that is a sign of an insecure spirit. So what we are saying is the easiest way for you to deal with your insecurities, number one, understand its source. Number two, understand who you are. Number three, understand what it means to be loved by God. Because the love of God is the cure for the insecurity of man. Hakuna mse anaweza kudeliver from insecurity other than the love of God. Ikue a revelation to you. So that no matter who rejects you, it doesn't matter. You know, when I realized how much God loves me, one time I was driving and nikaingia mse vibaya, so mse akantukana. And I smiled back because mse alinita a name of a domestic animal. But when I looked at myself, I realized maybe he has an eyesight problem. You see, what security does, it causes you to interpret things in an empowering way. But insecurity causes you to interpret things in a... Kama ningekuwa mse insecure, ningesema, umse anafikiria nani? Ananiita nini? You know, you start reacting. But when you're secure, you are able to judge things for what they are. He has called me a dog. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry. He has an eyesight problem. Maybe I need kwenda pale kwa optician atengezwe. Yeah? So insecurity. Yeah, so we have to go back to God for our insecurities to be dealt with. Number two is being insensitive and being immature. One of the things you will realize about relationships don't work because of love. Relationships work because of maturity. Na ukikuwa weni mse uko na immaturity mingi, one of the things that you will realize about immaturity is immaturity does what is good for now, but what is destructive in your tomorrow. Maturity does what is painful now, but will protect your tomorrow. And the more you mature, the more you enjoy your relationships. I remember when we got married with my wife, manze tulikuwa tunasumbuana videdly sana. Kwa sababu wife yangu ametoka pale Kiambaa, mimi nimetoka Murang'a. Wasi wa Murang'a wanakuwa na ego sana. Well, at least I knew I had a big ego, and I knew that had created a lot of immaturity problems for me. So one of the things that used to happen is I had a problem with forgiving quickly, you know. I felt like sometimes holding on to unforgiveness is the best punishment for the person who has offended me. But the more I matured, the more I realized there are things she will even do and I will choose to overlook. You know why? Maturity means that you are able to see beyond certain mistakes a person does and see the person, not the mistake. And you're able to separate between the mistake and the person. Right? So what are we saying? If you're going to have relationships that have a rhythm, you must confront your immaturity and insensitivity. Ukisoma pale Galatians, where he talks about the fruit of the Spirit, everything it is talking about there is about emotional maturity. But now the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace. So those are things that grow when you pursue maturity and you refuse to be a child. One of the things una realizing in our toi ni wanasnapping haraka sana. Mtoi umempatia sweetie, umeichukua ukailamba kidogo, amesnap. Yeah? So they are not in control of their emotional atmosphere. They are immature. Yeah? They are immature. And when you are immature, you become incapable of having rhythm in your relationships. Yeah? You need to be a stable human being. You need to be a human being mwenye you are not easily angered. Yeah? Usikue we ni mse wa kusnap juu ya vitu very trivial. Pettiness is a sign of immaturity. Yeah? Being short-sighted is a sign of immaturity. Being judgmental is a sign of immaturity. When you are mature, you don't judge a person based on a fast response. You get to understand them. You want to know why did they do what they did. I have seen people who have missed out on great relationships that they could have gotten into because they were immature. Yeah? By the way, part of maturity is knowing that what you feel and who you are not the same thing. You are not what you feel.
Okay.
Yeah. And the day you realize you're not what you feel is the day you can change what you feel.
Hapo sasa unanichanganya.
Okay, let's
nipeleke na mtaratara.
Nikupeleke pole pole. Okay, let's say something has happened, you are angry. You are angry. That's your state in that moment. But is that who you are? It's not who you are. That is an isolated state based on something that has happened. It is not your identity. We were having a discussion about this even with people who have, like, let's say, for example, gay tendencies and what have you. The challenge is not even having gay tendencies. The challenge is when you pick your identity from your feelings.
From those,
yeah. And a lot of people are being seduced by that. That because I feel this way, then this is who I am. So let me tell you something interesting I came to discover. If you've ever been angry at any one time, it means you have considered harming someone, right?
Yeah.
You could even have considered killing someone, right?
Yes.
But are you a killer? You're not. Why? You are able to isolate the feeling from who you are. You say, okay, I feel like I need to punch somebody in the nose. But because that's not who I am, I will separate the feeling from my identity. And that proves my maturity.
Oh, nah.
Right?
Perfect.
So immaturity ni kitu moja deadly sana. By the way, there are certain relationship blessings God will never allow you to enjoy until you rise above your immaturities, including peace in relationships, joy in relationships. Some of those things are released based on how you decide to grow. And not that they are not available, they are available because God has made them available for us, but you access them by maturity.
Nakumbuka tukiongelea watu watufai kurelate with.
Yes.
Na from Proverbs tulipikata watu wako na anger issues.
Absolutely.
Mtu wako slow in temperament.
Yes.
And vile umesema kuna vitu uwezi enjoy mpaka udeal na issues fulani. Na find mtu anajijua ata avoid sana mtu ako na hizo anger issues.
Absolutely.
Na mtu anajijua pia na ako na anger issues. Ataona vitu zangu haziwork kwa sababu ya hii kitu. Then ana deal na hiyo anger issues. Then hiyo level ya relationship unataka kuenda inakuwa sasa iko open because anger in itself ni hindrance. Mtu yote anajua kenye God anasema ata avoid sana kuingia kwa relationship na mtu
absolutely. So na hizo ndio vitu tunasema, when you're immature you explain your behavior with excuses, but when you begin maturing you confront your behavior because you want to rise higher in responsibility. Na unataka kuenta ile place God anataka uingie in relationships. And that's why we have got to be very intentional about principles, because hizi vitu ni principles ufanya una realize, hey, by the way, I need to work on this area. I need to work on my anger. I need to work on, for example, one time I counseled a couple that wanted to get married, and one of them was having a serious porn issue. And he was feeling that what will help him to solve it is being married. And I was telling him, look, you cannot solve a problem of your shadow by running away from the light. You can't do that. So I was telling him, look, this is an issue you need to deal with, because if you don't accept that you need to deal with it, you will be having your wife over here, then you will be having these affairs with these virtual women over here. And it's because you're not willing to come to that place of saying, I want to confront this area, right? So you keep creating a lot of storms in your relationship with him because umekataa to confront your immaturity and insensitivity. By the way, how you know you are sensitive, you think about the other person better than you think about yourself. That means as I relate with you, I am not thinking about how can I take advantage of Charis. I'm thinking about how can I be a blessing to Charis. That's why God ali bless Abraham, alimwambia, I will bless you and you will be a blessing. So if you're blessed just to be blessed, you're immature. When you become mature, you realize you're blessed to become a blessing.
Nice one.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Yeah.
There's a lady here ametuandikia. Mr. Charis, after dating a guy for 1 year, later I came to know that he's married.
Yes.
I forgive and forgot. Now I'm thinking of investment and I'm okay. I'm planning to buy a plot in Kitengela by December, God willing. You see, this is a reaction that imeenda ile side ingine. Somebody will also sit somewhere and say, watu wako hivi, I'm useless, I'm this. I think the part of maturity and also knowing who you are really comes in place.
Absolutely.
And then this is also how you interpret certain things. Azikuweke chini ama azikufanya ukae tu pale ukiomboleza kitu. Unaamka unasonga
because you don't lose who you are because you lost somebody. Even if you lost somebody, don't lose yourself.
Don't lose yourself.
Don't lose yourself.
Thank you on message yangu.
Hiyo ni yako.
Na message ya especially also my boy child when go kwa marriages. wanaume wanajisahau sana. Wanasahau they are very also very important.
Absolutely.
Somebody was telling me, imagine you a sad husband is not only a sad wife, it's also a sad.
Absolutely.
So the issue of your happiness, you have to put it mbele pia.
Absolutely.
The issue of your joy, inafai kuwe mbele pia, because it translates to the whole household.
Yes.
And I think it's also a timely reminder for the boy child. Naambiwa you have to sacrifice, you have to provide, you have to, the burden of providence is on you. Nakutena kukula sana, unajisahau. Nice one, Bonnie. Wow, rhythm in relationships.
Absolutely.
Hii imeenda vizuri. Nasikia nikaa unanifungua macho mtu wangu. Hata umefanya naweza kukubali upara inakuja. Like kama upara inakuja na wisdom.
Ndio sasa.
So ulisema mbili, I think mention zote mbili.
Yeah, so I can mention one last one.
Because we have like 3 minutes
we have like 3 minutes. Maybe let me do this as a what is it called, an additional component to this conversation. So tumeongea about principles. So tulianza kuongea about purpose, perspective, principles. Let me just give one last one, and it's what I call just the ability to use your personhood to evaluate who you relate with. Because relationships are very interesting. They are not forced. Hakuna mtu kuwekelea gun kwa kichwa na kwambia, manze, if you don't relate with me, I'm going to blow your brains out. No, it is a deliberate choice we make to get into relationship. So I want to just use this to paint a picture of some things you need to look at if you're going to have a rhythm with that person. Because kuna wase hata ukifanya nini utaikuwa na rhythm nao.
Hakuna hiyo chemistry.
Hakuna hiyo, there's something about you and them that cannot connect. So let me just throw a few things here. Before you get into a relationship with somebody, there are things you need to examine about them. Number one, examine who they admire. Who somebody admires tells you a lot about what they value. Ukipata uko na boys, maybe I'm a girl, anasemaga na kuja church, na watu wenye you admire ni watu wa world, what you have is a sheep clothed, is a wolf clothed with sheepskin.
Okay.
Yeah. Kwa sababu ya nini? People will eventually become like who they admire. If they admire the wrong people, you will never have a right relationship with them because they will model who they admire. Number two, very quickly, examine what they tolerate. Ni nini mse uvumilia? Ni nini mse yofanya anasema, I am willing to endure for this thing? Because what you tolerate reveals your values. What you tolerate reveals your values. One of the reasons why I believe David alimari Abigail alikuwa amemarika na mse alikuwa anaitwa Nabal. The word Nabal means fool. So here is what David knew. David aliona saa zile alitaka kuwa Nabal. Abigail came to actually protect a fool. So what does that tell you about Abigail? It tells you she had an instinct to protect. And as a man, you don't want a woman that is a parasite who comes to take from you. You want a woman who comes to protect what you have.
So Devi aliona kitu.
Alicheki manzi akaona hapa kuna protection iko pale. Yeah. So examine what they are willing to tolerate. Because what people are willing to tolerate is who they are. Number three, very quickly. Examine what they ignore. What does somebody ignore? Because what you ignore tells about what you've prioritized in life. Ukitaka kujua mse ni nani, examine what do they ignore. Who do they ignore? Why are they ignoring that person? Because many times suing your relationships out of love, but we don't examine. Can you imagine, before you go to buy land, una-examiningi, unafanya research ujue hii land iko aje. But when you're getting into something that involves your heart, you're not examining, right?
Yeah, kama kondoo.
Yes. And the last one is examine what they are willing to separate themselves from. The reason why Lot lost his wife in Sodom is because his wife was not willing to separate from the culture of Sodom. So you know what? She could not go with Lot where he was going. Examine what somebody is willing to separate from.
Boni,
yes,
hebu peana namba yako leo kwa mtu anataka ku reach out. Naona kuna mtu hapa anasema nataka kuambia Boni kitu.
Okay. So kama ungependa ku reach out kwangu, my number is 0723 562 587. 23 562 587. Anaweza nitafuta pia pale kwa mtandao, niko pale. Anything I can do to help, I'd be more than glad to help.
Amen. Yes. Nice one. Thank you, Boni.
Thank you, man.
Asante. RYTHMS sasa iko rada. Nakwambia iko rada.
Iko rada.
Kwangu ana smilingi sana siku hizi. Tangu nianze kukusikia.
Asante.